Hello and welcome to the 61st episode of the Buddy Podcast. I'm your host, Buddy Lindsay, and today we're going to talk about 5 reasons I think you should learn how to do 3D modeling for your DIY projects. But before that, if you haven't visited the website in a while, feel free to do so at buddiy.net. Feel free to subscribe on social media and YouTube, Odyssey, and Instagram as well. And this is a podcast, and we're available on most major podcasting platforms. If we're not on yours, let me know, and I will see about getting it on there. So with that in mind, let's jump to the first segment, and that would be the quote of the week, and it has to do with planning. And it is, planning is bringing the future into the present so that you can do something about it now. Alan Laken. This is a great quote because I think one of the core things about what I want to talk to you today on 3D modeling is really about planning. And kind of some of the stuff that I've done this week is all around planning. I'm a huge planner, and I love to plan projects. I'm terrible at like planning like daily activity stuff. I can do it, but I'm more of a project planner. I like planning out my projects and then understanding what needs to get done, when they need to get done, and other things like that. But I really do like the perspective that, hey, I want to get to this place, and planning is how to take that end result and bring it into the moment so that I can make sure I get there in a good way. So on that note, let's talk about what happened this last week. And if you're like me, you just went through some really cold weather for the last week, actually 2 weeks, and it was quite exciting. Overall, we made it through it pretty well. We had a few hiccups along the way, but it wasn't too bad. And I'm going to cover that as my main episode next week on preparation and kind of a retrospective of what happened kind of during the ice storm. And I kind of want to make it a little bigger of a segment than what I could do in just a couple of days this week. So that's why I'm doing the kind of 3D modeling segment this week. Other than that, like, it really allowed me to get in my office and do what I like to call office work, paperwork stuff. I just have a bunch of various tasks that needed to get done, and I just, they're not all one thing, and so I just call it all paperwork. And so I got a lot of paperwork done this week. And so some of the fun things that I got done is I finished editing the video for the dust collector, got the narration in place, got some background music, did some of the color grading stuff, got it exported and uploaded to YouTube. I still have a couple more things to do with it. Also learned how to do a decently well thumbnail for it, and actually found a good tutorial that I like, and learned several Photoshop techniques that I've wanted to learn from that single tutorial. So that was really cool. And so just really working through getting that thing up so that it can be, I'm hoping to get it up this week actually, and kind of get it out there for everyone to see. And yeah, so just did a lot of learning around that. The other thing is I got the ATmega 328 chip, and I got my resistors, and I got my capacitors, and I got everything that I needed in place to actually kind of prototype out the Arduino based board for the air quality detector. And so I finally got it all together, except it doesn't actually work. And so I'm not exactly sure what to do. I'm still new enough. I'm not exactly sure how to debug this issue. And the only thing I can think of at this point is I need to get like a multimeter or something and actually like test each individual component to make sure that they're working properly. That's the only thing I know to do at this point. If that doesn't actually work, then I have a friend who does electronic stuff, and I'm going to give him a shout out and see if he can actually help me. The biggest problem I hit on that was I don't have a multimeter. I can't find them. I had 3 like cheap Harbor Freight multimeters, and I can't find any of them. They just kind of got up and walked away. So I'm going to have to order another multimeter, so it's kind of something else to research out to figure out what I need to get or what I should get. But other than that, like, it went smooth. Like, I feel like I figured things out, understand things a little bit better, and how it all works. I don't think it's my FTDI module because I use that with an ESP. I forget what it is. A little module when I was experimenting with doing like a Wi-Fi connected temperature gauge. There's a small little module chip. The FTDI chip worked just fine for that. The other issue is I did take the chip off of my little breadboard build out of it, put it in an Arduino Uno, and actually ran the Blink program on that, and it ran just fine. So it is, I'm fairly certain, something about my configuration and my setup on a breadboard, and I just need to kind of work through it and figure out what's wrong. Hopefully It's just something simple like, oh, this little thing is bad, and I just replace it with a new one, and everything works. I guess I probably could have tried that because I have multiples of some stuff. I could have just started swapping a few things out and see if that fixed it. I don't know. We'll see. Just more experimenting to do to try to figure it out and get it done. Kind of the last couple of things is I spent a little bit of time on the website working on it a tiny bit, and I rewrote my about page. I don't know how much you deal with websites, but if you have a website, one of the pages that's visited quite frequently is the about page. People like to know about the people that they're reading. You know, what are you about? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Or if it's a company that you want to buy something from, people like to learn about the company a little bit. Or if they're offering a free service, this is me particularly, if somebody's offering a free service, I like to figure out how they make money and why. What are they doing to make money? And so I go read the about page or information about them so that I understand how they're making money to be able to provide this service. And so I kind of revamped my about page. I actually followed kind of in line with a site that I really like, Danny Chu. I haven't visited his website in forever until this week, probably a decade at this point, maybe not quite that long ago, but pretty much a decade ago. And one thing I remembered from his site is that he has a narrative of his life basically as his about page, and he's super compelling, lots of pictures and things like that. And so I was kind of trying to follow that same vein, just pulled out some Instagram pictures that I have. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to work on the about page, fill it out, kind of give a little more narrative story, and make it interesting. I think it's interesting. I put some more information on there to try to drive a story and a narrative, and I should need to get some more pictures to show stuff and kind of break it up a little bit more. It was fun and interesting, and got some SEO value out of it. Hopefully, we'll see. But yeah, it's something I've been meaning to do because what was there was bland and kind of. So we'll see how that goes. The final thing is my Elmer. He sent me a radio. It's going to be used for UHF, VHF frequencies because the HF board is not working. And so, yeah, hopefully this week I'll get some connectors for that, hook it up to my battery that I have, and see about getting on the air. I still need to look through the manual a little bit to see what's going on in that. But yeah, hopefully this week I'll be able to listen in and call out using a kind of a base station instead of just a little Baofeng radio. So really excited to finally get on the air. So with all of that out of the way, let's move on to the main segment, and that would be the 5 reasons that I think you should learn how to do 3D modeling. And really these come from personal experience of things that I've done and things that I have intention to do based around the 3D modeling. The first one, and kind of the most obvious, is it helps you plan your projects. The biggest part of that is every project that I've done for the most part around the house is I will 3D model it in SketchUp. Generally, the two DIY 3D model programs that are out there are SketchUp and Fusion 360. I've done a little bit with Fusion 360. It's definitely interesting, but I have a lot more experience with SketchUp, and it's something that I'm more familiar with, so I'm just a lot faster with it. I do need to make the transition to Fusion 360. I'll get into that here in a minute. But for the most part, I use SketchUp for all of my woodworking projects, and the big project that I was working on this week, and that is re-roofing my chicken shack, my chicken shed. And so the reason that was an interesting experience is because I had to learn how to roof a building by watching a bunch of tutorials. So yeah, but this building is a little bit different in that kind of the peaks of the building are made out of brick. And so it's got a really weird little shape to it, and it's not like a square building and then you put trusses on it, and it can be kind of whatever angle that you want the roof to be. You can change the pitch at will. The pitch is determined by the brick, and so I had to get out there and measure things out and put it in the 3D program, and then I had to model out how and where I want the trusses and all the things around that, and then where to do. I can't think of the boards that go across to be able to do the metal roof on there. And so it really, really helped to think through all the different places that wood needs to go. As an example, I needed to do kind of some caps on top of the stone walls because they have like a 5-inch area where it's just a topper in a sense, and so I need to put a piece of wood on top of that, and I need to secure it to the actual wall on both sides, and then I need to run a 2x6, I think probably by 8. Along the edge where the actual stone brick is, so that it gives me something to actually attach everything to, and kind of separates it from the stone peak. And then from there I have to, and so those are kind of 2 semi-trusses on the front and back. But from there I have to get the next several trusses. They have to be at the same angle as what the stone area is. But plus I also got to figure out the cutout to go down and that actually attaches to that top cap piece of wood. Those are all different things I don't necessarily know. I would have had to figure out on the fly if I was to go out there today and just start working, and probably would sink an hour or two trying to figure out all the little things that I need to do. But now I already need to do them. Another thing is I was watching how to actually put on the boards for to attach the metal roofing, and I got a lot of good tips on using the metal roof panels that you're going to do and pre-mark them with a pencil mark, and so that way when you get up there you're not wondering where you need to mark. You just drill them all in and you're good to go. The other thing is how to actually cut the different pieces for kind of the gables and then the roof vent. And I also didn't realize that in metal roofing that you do these little rubber pieces that prevent bugs and stuff from going up into the roof. I'm super glad about that. But that was all stuff that I learned from trying to figure out how to do it and then 3D model those things in. One of the things that I didn't expect that I needed to do, but after watching, is that where the roof peak comes down, where the trusses come down, I actually need to put like a cap board on the outside of where at the bottom of the roof, so that I have something for the I can't think of what it's called, kind of the eave or whatever, for the metal to kind of flow over to, so that when rain drains down, it drains down off of that, and instead of getting on the wood and then rotting out the wood faster. So something totally didn't expect that I would need to do, and was super glad that by 3D modeling it out and researching it out beforehand, I was able to figure out the best way to accomplish it. Now I have a plan of action to actually get out there and do the work. And then, I've done that with other projects as well. Specifically, anything that I make that doesn't have designs already. So the bunk bed and the stair dresser. Also, I did a wooden cube system. And in the case of both of those, I was able to work out measurements beforehand and figure out proportions so that I'm not trying to do it on the fly. I know I spent hours planning the stair dresser and the bed. And whenever I was actually able to get out there and start working, I didn't have a lot that I had to figure out. It was more, how do I make proper cuts to conserve material on the wood that I have? I still screwed that up in the end, but I did pretty good otherwise. And so I feel like you can use 3D modeling to plan out projects and pre-build projects, and that was just it. I pre-build projects in SketchUp so that I find the dumb little things that I didn't think about at first. Here's an example. I wanted to create a brooder for the chickens 2 years ago. And I just kind of like slapped some ideas together in my head, 3D modeled, a couple of things, just big giant blocks everywhere, not really thinking about how I would actually attach everything. And then I went to go out and build it and realized some of the angles of the stuff that I needed to make, I have no way to cut those angles. I didn't even have a way to figure out what that angle would be, and not only figure out what that angle would be, but to cut it and fit it properly. No idea. So I had to do a lot of crazy stuff to try to get those angles in there, and it took me so long to do to try to get it done. Had I actually tried to think it through while I was planning it, because one of the things that I do as I'm building a project in SketchUp is I try to think through the cuts that I need to make whenever possible. I would have figured out I don't have the tools available to do some of those cuts, and I would have come up with a different plan. So yeah, it really helped out on the roof doing the 3D modeling. Plus, I 3D modeled the building itself and spent a couple of hours planning different areas and layouts for the actual stuff inside so that I can turn that small little building into kind of our, I call it the chicken shack now. It's everything needed to take care of chickens. It's going to store everything. We're going to get a plucker this year, so the plucker is going to go in there. Probably going to get a stainless steel table of sorts for actually doing butchering, and so that's going to go in there as well. And I'm going to store the feed, all the equipment, the netting, the solar stuff, like just everything that would possibly need to go out there, I'm going to put out there. And so I had to design shelves. I also was having trouble. I have the food in these 55-gallon drums, and I'm like, okay, now I have those out there, but where am I going to put them? So I was actually able to figure out where I want to put those, and figure out that I want to put them on dollies so I can move it around as needed, so I could be able to get to and do a few things that I want to do. So it allowed me to kind of think through everything and move stuff, or move a kind of a 3D version of what I was building to different places to see what would fit best. And in the end, I think it came out with a really good solution. I'm super excited about it. But I feel like I would have wasted a lot of time, building stuff or trying to build stuff if I hadn't done it in 3D model first. So totally think 3D modeling is great for pre-planning and pre-building your project. The next thing that I think learning to 3D model is great for is to actually have a visual representation of what you're building for reference out in the shop, building up some plans and putting it out there, doing different angles. So it actually helps in the build process. Because the suckiest thing is you only draw like two angles, kind of a top down and a straight on, and maybe a side or whatever. But sometimes you want to see what it looks like at an angle, and you want to know what the actual different dimensions are of things. And so it gives you a representation that you can print off and actually build from. And I know that when I'm building stuff, if I get everything at all different angles and I have different measurements on the board itself, it helps me to track better what I'm building. So I'm building out, in a sense, a set of plans for me to build from. And so it makes everything go smoother, and I can chunk things out into a different set of steps that I can go through and like work on this chunk, and then I work on this chunk, and then I work on this chunk, and then I build them all together in the end. And everything stays laid out cohesive and an easy to follow set of plans and a path to actually get things done. Plus, whenever I'm thinking about a project, I can actually pull up kind of an image or two of the actual project, and I can show it to other people and be like, hey, what do you think of this? Here's some thoughts on this. What do you think about that? And then give me feedback and tell me my idea is terrible or my idea is great. And because friends are good at giving you a hard time about stuff that you design. So it's just a great tool to use to not only plan what you want to do, but whenever you're actually in the build process, figuring out what it is that you're doing and what step you're on. So between these first two, like, it's totally worth it without any of the rest of the things that I'm going to talk about, because it can save you so much time and so much money. Let's jump to the money aspect of it. Like, how does it save you money? Well, money-wise, it is cost of time that you spend making mistakes in the shop. 2 is you get better cut lists of things that you need to buy, so you have a better understanding of materials that you need to buy, and you make less trips to big box stores or any stores that you need to go to buy stuff that you forgot about, because you should already have it all accounted for in your planning process. So you're saving time then, and you're saving money because you've already bought the stuff, where you can figure out how to slim stuff down. So let's jump to number 3, and that would be if you get started doing the 3D modeling stuff for kind of DIY projects around the house, and it's more than just for, say, woodworking projects or building a shed, you can actually model out your house a little bit, and you're trying to do some designs for plumbing and other things. Like you can say, okay, it needs to go here, it needs to go here, here's the other stuff that I have, and it can help you think things through if you know what's in your walls in your house and where things are located, and kind of give you a visual representation of what you need to do. Maybe there's a different way to accomplish the same thing that you're trying to get done. So like there's just a lot of things that you can do, and so you can learn doing those things that you're doing, and then you can take that knowledge and that skill set of doing 3D modeling and the basics that you figured out, and you can jump to 3D printing, which is where I want to go. I so badly want a 3D printer, and up until I would say the last 3 months, I never had a reason to get a 3D printer. It was always one of those things, oh, that would be super cool, but I have nothing to actually use it for. But over the last 3 months, I've run into several situations where I could print something off and it would be a great thing to have. And in one particular case, it's actually 2 particular cases, I think it's something that I could sell and make a little bit of money from. And so the thing about getting a 3D printer is you now have a new set of skills that you need to learn. Specifically, you need to, if you've never done it before, you need to learn how to 3D model. Then you need to learn how to slice up the thing. Then you need to figure out how to assemble your 3D printer and keep it going. And then you need to figure out how to actually 3D print, like get it, like all the steps involved in doing it. You have to learn about different filaments, just a bunch of stuff that you have to learn. Whereas if you already know how to do 3D modeling, several of those steps are just going to kind of connect together and be a lot easier for you to get your designs onto a 3D printer and get it printed. And so it's kind of a precursor to getting to 3D print. Plus, you can make money 3D printing. You can save money 3D printing stuff. Like one of the things particularly that I want to 3D print is a new box to hold the electronics on my printer. They just don't make those anymore, and I don't want to spend $80 for the one that I saw on eBay that might not actually fit, but it might. And so, if I were to buy a 3D printer, depending on the one that I bought, I'm already part of the way there if I print that thing, so I could save that money. Because that box is starting to fall apart with age. So anyway, there's several other things that I want to print, and once I kind of hit a critical mass where it's like, hey, here is like $400 worth of stuff that I would like to print, and I can print out, then it'd be like, okay, now I have an excuse to get a 3D printer and actually start doing this stuff. But again, you need some 3D modeling abilities to really fully take advantage of being able to do the 3D printer and do it well. And on the note of 3D printing, 3D modeling, generally you would probably want to use something like Fusion 360 to do your 3D printer stuff. And I do know woodworkers that use Fusion 360. It is a good program. Again, I came to it late. I kind of had a choice like SketchUp or Fusion 360. And it's like, I already know SketchUp pretty decently, and I just don't have time to deal with Fusion 360. I also have some other issues with Fusion 360 that literally no one else has, and it has to do with my internet. And so once my internet gets solved, hopefully in the next few months with Starlink, Fusion 360, that particular tiny hesitation will be gone from using Fusion 360. So anyway, that's it for the 3D printing stuff. Let's move on to point number 4, and that is you can use it as a sales tool. And you're like, but wait, I'm a DIYer. Well, sometimes you might want to sell a few things just to kind of recoup some of the money in tools, because sometimes you spend a lot of money on tools and you kind of like some of that money back, and you'd like to be able to justify what you've been doing. So you can use it as a sales tool. Again, you can take the ideas from earlier. You're building out plans, you're building out visual representations, and you can go really far in the different models, and you can do like rendering of where the sun and the aspect of the sun is going to be to be able to do where shadows are going to be. You can put different skins and things on different elements so that you can get a really cool look. I've seen some amazing stuff that people have done for interior design in SketchUp, and you can extrapolate that kind of idea to doing different things. And so if somebody wants to buy stuff, because I know a lot of DIYers that build stuff, and every so often they get somebody in and they're like, hey, can you build this thing for me? And they're usually willing to pay, and you can be like, yeah, let me put something together. And from a sales technique, you don't want to just like draw something out and show, hey, what do you think of this? Because you might not be able to charge as much for that. However, if you'll take a little bit of time and you'll at least 3D design the kind of the bulk of it, not necessarily all the joinery and all the other crap like that, but the bulk of what it's going to look like. You do some skins on it, and then you do some stuff surrounding it to kind of make it pop. Then you can generally sell what that is to whoever it is for that good commission work, and you can get a better rate for what you're trying to do. As an example, a designer friend of mine, amazing designer. I wish I could afford his prices. Let me tell you, that's how good he is. He said, when you design stuff and you show it to a customer, never show them the design by itself, because they're not going to like it. Show them the design on something else, and they're going to love it instantly almost. And so like it just changes the perception of how they see whatever it is that they're wanting and what you're designing. So you can use something like SketchUp or Fusion 360 to design that thing, put it in a scene that's going to make that thing pop, and then you can use it to sell it and make more money than you would have. And you've probably not gotten a lot of extra work that you've done for it, especially if you get in there and you kind of pre-design a scene for specific types of furniture or other projects that you might make. And so then it's just a matter of dropping it, getting in there, getting a couple different angles right, and you're good to go. You can even go a step further in some of this. I've not actually done this stuff, but I literally just thought about it. Wasn't even going to include it in this podcast. There's a lot of camera work that you can do in SketchUp and Fusion 360 so that you can get kind of a 3D dimensional view and look at it, and you can kind of fly through and do different things like that to kind of up the production value. No idea how to do that, but it's something that you could do if you were interested. The final plans are, is making plans. So in step 2, I talked about making plans for yourself. Well, you can take that a step further, and you can build them out a little bit more, and you can either sell them and make a little bit of money on a website. But if you're not interested in that, that's cool too. But you can take those plans and you can give them to other people. I know my dad is about to start on a project, and it's literally a project that I was working on because they liked what they saw when they were at the house. And so I need to tweak on it a little bit more, break out a couple of things, and then I'm going to give him a PDF of the plans for that project, and he's going to go make it. And so it's just an opportunity to help fellow makers, and whenever they're like, hey, I want to build this thing, but I don't know how I want to do it, I don't know a good way to do it, you can just be like, hey, let me shoot you an email with the thing that I built that's just like it. And you can either do a PDF of whatever it is with the plans, or you can just shoot them the file itself, the SketchUp file itself, which is kind of that as well. Kind of the benefit is that as well is it helps other people with projects, and they can help you with your projects because they can send you a SketchUp file of something, and you can kind of break it down as well. Again, using SketchUp because that's what I use. You could do that with other programs as well. So yeah, it's a tool to help others with projects and give them the plans of what you've done, and they can give you their plans, and then you can go in there and tweak it. Now, you have to have the skill to tweak it. I know I went and opened up Steve Ramsey's, one of his projects in SketchUp, and he used features I have no idea how they work, and so I couldn't ever actually modify anything in it. I felt incredibly stupid, but it is something that could have done had I had the skill set to do it at that time. Maybe now I could do it, but like when I was first messing with it, I was like, I don't understand what's going on. So anyway, that is a possibility, though, to be able to help you and others with projects. So with that, we are done with the main segment. So let's move on to the failure of the week. And, I realized a little while back talking to my wife, I talk about the failure of the week and I give the failure of the week, but I don't ever mention why I do the failure of the week anymore. And so I want to try to include at the beginning of this segment, if I can remember moving forward, why I do the failure of the week. And the reason I do it is because we don't often talk about our failures. We don't talk about the reasons we did things bad, the reasons that we failed. I mean, let's just straight up go with that. We don't talk about the reasons that we failed and what we can learn from those. And people like to just talk about successes. I find people's failures interesting because I want to learn from other people's failures. So I'm doing this segment so other people can learn from my failures. A lot of times I try to take it out, what is the failure that I had this week? So sometimes they're stupid and mundane, but sometimes they're significant and very interesting. I need to get better about doing like bigger failures that I've had whenever on weeks that I have stupid and mundane ones. But sometimes, realizing that other people make dumb mistakes throughout the week is also gratifying as well, because you're like, I am not alone. I mean, the amount that I screw stuff up and don't mention because I have several that week and is just amazing. And then sometimes if I don't have a failure of the week, that means I didn't do anything. So, having that failure of the week kind of helps motivate me to make sure I'm doing something, because I always fail at something. It's not a big deal. It's not a problem. It's just something for me to get better at. If I acknowledge my mistakes, I can learn from them and I can do better next time. And that's the reason why. I am going to find a shorter way to say all of that in future episodes. So let's jump into the failure of the week. And that would be on planning. Go figure. One thing that I am not good at, and sometimes I get it and sometimes I don't, is getting enough measurements and getting enough pictures of what I am trying to do. So I went out and I took a picture of the building that I'm going to turn into the chicken shack, and took a few pictures of it, did a bunch of measurements, got into the house, or got into my office, and some of those pictures I couldn't figure out what I was taking a picture of because I was too close or I was far back, and I'm like, now what was I trying to take a picture of? Because this looks the exact same as 3 other pictures that I just took. And so like, what's going on? And so I didn't get enough pictures. One of the ways I've compensated for that type of thing is I'll just take too many pictures. I'll just take tons and tons of pictures at all kinds of different angles, and then I can kind of go from there. The other thing that I didn't do is, and I did it for 2 projects, and I don't know why I never remember about it till I am actually 3D modeling something, is I take a tape measure and I measure it out, and then take a picture of the tape measure where that length is, so that I have a reference, not just some description that I have on my phone in my notes app, because sometimes my descriptions are terrible and it makes sense in the context of that exact moment, but half an hour later, after I'm trying to translate that into a 3D model, it doesn't make any sense anymore. And so my failure is just not enough pictures and not enough documentation beforehand. And I kept having to trudge through the snow at 9 o'clock at night trying to do 3D model, getting measurements and other pictures for the 3D model. So my failure of the week is just more pictures, and that would have solved it. So with that, I thank you for your time. I thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you learned something, let me know. Leave me a comment. Hit me an email on the contact form on the website at buddiy.net. Please sign up for that email newsletter, because that helps me let you know when new content is coming out. Because this week I had a product of the week over mint tea and why I like to drink peppermint tea. Check out the website, buddiy.net, to find out more on that. And we will see you next time in episode 62. It's amazing we're in the 60s already. Let's make sure we can get to 100 this year, and I'll talk to you later.